Hey guys, welcome to the hangar. My name is Sam, and in today's episode, we're going to be building the HRC CrawlerTrax Broken Bridge. Let's go. Balance your rock crawling skills with the all-new HRC CrawlerTrax Broken Bridge obstacle, specifically designed for the 1/18 and 1/24 scale RC rock crawlers. While attempting this obstacle, you will be faced with a narrow line that allows for a slim margin of error before you become victim to the bridge's broken deck. The Broken Bridge features a tilting seesaw action bridge deck that can be adjusted for 2 different skill levels. With some minor adjustment, you can test your extreme skills or play past the transmitter and let someone else with less experience have a go at it. Each HRC CrawlerTrax obstacle comes with multiple customizable features, such as the option to add full color scale graphics. On the build difficulty level for this obstacle, the Broken Bridge, we give it 3 out of 5 wrenches. This obstacle is a little bit more involved to build. You're going to need a few supplies, but still, like the rest of our obstacles, very easy to build. On the obstacle difficulty level, we rate this 2 out of 5 tires. With that being said, I love this obstacle. This was one of the very first obstacles I designed, and I tell you what, it's a blast. I could do this over and over and over. And we have some adjustability built into it. We'll talk about that a little bit later. You can definitely ride this obstacle for hours. I love the scale of it. I love the full color graphics. It's a fun obstacle. And with that being said, let's move all this aside and get our materials in order, and let's get on with the build. I'm gonna slide this guy over here really quick. Keep it right here. Here at the hangar, we get a ton of questions about what rigs we're running. Just so you know, this rig is a Panda Hobby 6x6. We'll put a link in the description below. Let's talk about tools. This build is a little bit more involved. It's gonna require a few extra steps, but as long as you stick with me on this build video, we can do this. This is super easy. It just requires a few additional steps, and you're gonna need a few additional tools to build this. Speaking of tools, let's review what tools we'll need. The first thing I would recommend is picking up a good X-Acto knife. We like the X-Acto knives that hold the number 11 blades. These X-Acto knives are wonderful because they can, if you have to cut through something, they can get into the crevices of where the laser's cut a lot easier than, say, a utility knife or any other type of razor blade, if you will. These are wonderful. These are a couple of my favorites. This is a Friska's one. We'll put a link in the description below. In fact, for all these tools, we'll put links in the description below. Just a quick side note, those are affiliate links. They do help us out. If you click on that link and you purchase through our affiliate links, it doesn't cost you any more to use our affiliate links. So if you wouldn't mind supporting us, click those affiliate links and order your supplies from Amazon. This one is a Friska's. It's one of my favorite knives, or used to be, still is, but you can tell mine's well used. And this one is my brand new Ryobi knife. I get questions all the time what knife this is. It's a Ryobi. I actually picked this one up. I ordered it through the Home Depot, but we'll try to find links and put them down below. The next thing you're gonna want is some blades, obviously, for your X-Acto knives. Once again, we like the number 11s for these X-Acto knives. They just seem to work really well, and they're really good for getting in the grooves of where the laser may or may not have cut, and trimming up some tabs as well. The next thing you're gonna need is you're gonna need some clamps. We like these little clamps. They're available just about anywhere, but just some clamps. There's a couple other things you can use instead of clamps. Anything you can find that's heavy around your house, we'll cover that when we get to the build. We like these little snips. I think these are called cutoff pliers. Very simple, very cheap. You can get them just about anywhere. Great little pliers to have, just to cut off some manufacturing tabs and clean up the wood. On the flip side of that coin is some sandpaper. This is just 220 I've had laying around forever, and this does the same thing as the cutoff pliers. You can sand down the edges, you can smooth out some rough spots, or you can actually round off some of the edges if you don't like the sharp edge on them. And we'll show you a little bit more about that when we get to it in the build. The next thing you're going to need is some glue. We like our Tybond Quick and Thick, and we've covered this in other build videos. This stuff is amazing. For being wood glue, it does really well, and it sets in about 15 to 20 minutes. Unlike other glue, other wood glues, or even white glue that takes up to 24 hours to fully cure, this stuff sets and is workable in the 15 to 20 minute time frame. That is amazing. When I found this stuff, I was thrilled. So get yourself some good wood glue. This is Tybond Quick and Thick. The next thing we like to show people is this silicone roller and tray. It's like a little mini paint roller, but it's got grooves in it that helps really make whatever two surfaces you're gluing together adhere really nice and strong. Kind of like if you've ever done tile. These things are actually really cool. The reason why I like these is cleanup is a snap. If you're like me and a procrastinator, you can actually just leave the glue on it and then take it to some hot water days, weeks, whatever later, and the glue will peel right off. Kind of like when you were a kid and you used to put rubber cement in your hand and you used to peel it off. I don't know if you did that, I sure did. This will do the same thing, both the silicone tray and the roller itself. You can also clean it up immediately. Just take some water, rinse it under some water, some hot water preferably, it works better, and that glue will come right off the silicone roller. Whether you're a procrastinator like myself or whether you're actually like to clean up your tools after you're done using them, I guess I'm not really much of a procrastinator, but sometimes I do forget. Like when I was doing the frame bender build video, I forgot, and luckily it was silicone, luckily it peeled right off. So get yourself a good silicone roller and tray. The next thing we're going to need for this build is a hot glue gun and some hot glue sticks. This is my favorite hot glue gun. This is a Ryobi. This thing is cool because I can take it to the field if something breaks. When I'm doing planes, I can take this to the field, turn it on, and fix my stuff right away, right there at the field. But any hot glue gun will do. We like the high temp stuff. It just seems to work a little bit better than the low temp. So get yourself a good glue gun. We'll put links to these in the description below if you don't already have a glue gun. But glue guns are cheap and glue sticks are cheap. It's definitely a good investment, and you'll use it more than just for assembling your CrawlerTrax. But once again, I really enjoy my Ryobi glue gun. This thing gets screaming hot. So just be careful. The next thing on your shopping list is a bar of soap. Why? Because you stink. Just kidding. We use this to lubricate the hinge. We like the Irish Spring because, hey, it smells good. No, that's not the reason. The reason why we like the Irish Spring is because it's a softer soap. It's not hard like the Ivories and some other soap brands. The difference is the softer soap spreads better and you get more uniform coverage. The harder soap will still do the same thing. It's just a little bit more hard to spread and to coat the wooden hinge so that it rotates smoothly. Those are the basic tools you're going to need to build the Broken Bridge. Let's get out our quick kit and show you what's inside. This is the most exciting part. I love this part. I love building. I love running. These things are awesome. You're going to love it. Let's do it. This is the quick kit. You're going to get it when you pick up yours. It's going to come just like this. All right, the easiest way to get into our quick kits, take your utility knife or your X-Acto knife, your number 11 that you're going to get because you're not going to use the utility knife, and you're just going to cut down the side, just like this. Let me open this up here. Now the first thing you're going to see is you're going to see your info sheet. It has a QR code and a link to this video. The next thing you're going to see is you're going to see a sticker, because who doesn't like a cool sticker? And then you're going to see your graphics. We're going to actually start with our graphics because we like them to be drying or curing or setting up while we're punching out and building the rest of our obstacle. It just gives you a little bit more time so that graphics can dry enough to allow you to work with them. So we're going to set our graphics aside really quick, and we're going to talk about this kit. In the kit you have 3 sheets, and on page 2, as you can see, you have 4 washers. You want to make sure you don't lose these washers. So I'm going to take these washers out. They should just pop out with your X-Acto knife, just like so. Perfect. All right. I'm going to take these 4 washers and set them aside. We'll use them a little bit later. And the 3rd sheet looks like that. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to find our side pieces that actually we are adhering the graphics to. And the first side piece is on sheet 1 of 3, and the second side piece is on sheet 3 of 3. So we're going to pull this out. I'm going to set these other ones aside so I can punch out the first one. Once again, remember, we're actually doing this so that we can get the graphics on and they can be drying while we're finishing up our build. So I'm just going to punch this out. They should punch out really easy. And if they don't, I like to use a rocking motion. And using that rocking motion back and forth, you should be able to get these punched out. If by chance you see a portion where the laser didn't cut all the way through, that's why we have our X-Acto knife. All you have to do is take your X-Acto knife and just run it down and break that wood just barely where the laser didn't cut all the way through. Unfortunately, different humidities affect wood, different temperatures affect wood, wood swells, wood shrinks, wood warps. Those are things that are out of our control. We have a very good quality control team. Here in Utah, we're a very dry climate, and if we ship to a very humid climate, that's where the wood's going to swell. And if you take your X-Acto knife, that can save you a lot of hassle. So I'm just going to finish punching this out. Oh, just like so. Now, once again, with the X-Acto knife, you'll see where these got left there. That's okay, because we're just going to take our X-Acto knife and we're going to just clean up that edge. Super easy to do, doesn't take a whole lot. There it goes, ricochet. And just like that, our piece is cleaned up. While we're on the topic of cleaning up pieces, you'll notice on the top of here, we've got some manufacturing tabs. They're just little nudges where the laser stops cutting just for a brief second. Actually, it's probably a millisecond, but the laser stops cutting just to leave it so that it doesn't fall out of its wood frame and allows us to ship. We call those manufacturing tabs. That's where these pliers come in handy. You can actually cut those off with these pliers, or you can take your sandpaper and you can actually sand those tabs down just a little bit, and that allows you to not only sand the tabs down and get a nice smooth edge, but if you would like, you can actually round off some of the sharp edges just by running your sandpaper over it, and then it rounds off those sharp edges if you want. I don't typically do it. Typically when I run my rigs over it, that ends up rounding them off. But if you want to do it with sandpaper, like I said, this is just 220 sandpaper I had laying around. So you're more than welcome to do that. It just makes it a little bit nicer. Once again, you can do it the way you want. I'm going to get this piece. Oh, I got to punch out the center piece. There we go. Let's set that aside. And I'm going to put this aside and grab the other piece we need. It's on sheet 3. It looks very similar to the piece we just punched out. All right, now that's punched out. I'm going to set the rest of the sheet aside and punch this little guy out. Whoops. And then we've got our 2 pieces. Show you what those look like that we need for adhering our graphics. All right, now that we've got our pieces punched out of the parent sheet, let's take a look at them. You'll notice there's a few more of these little tabs I've got to cut out. Just take your X-Acto knife and scrape those out. Trim up any slivers, anything you think that will hinder your ability to assemble the product or assemble the obstacle. And now we're going to get on to the gluing. Okay? First thing I always like to do when I'm gluing is I like to dry fit my pieces. So to make sure, as you can see here, to make sure that they're in the right spot, right? These graphics are piece specific, so you need to make sure that they line up perfectly. And if they can't get them to fit either way, flip the piece of wood over. And that way, that one fits just fine. And this one looks like it fits just fine as well. Once you've done a dry fit with your pieces and you're sure that they fit perfectly, we're gonna go ahead and start gluing these on. I'm gonna start with the one with the sign, so I'll set that aside. I'm gonna take my silicone roller and I'm gonna take my quick and thick glue. And I'm actually, for this bottle of quick and thick, I like to take the lid off because it tends to clog the nozzle. I don't know why, so I just take the lid off. And I typically don't put glue in my roller tray. When I'm applying my glue, I typically don't put it in my roller tray, my silicone tray, just because I don't like to clean it up. So I just go ahead and spread it right on the piece of wood itself. Now, don't get too much because it's always easier to add more than it is to take away. Take my roller and I'm just gonna start from the top and focusing my attention with the glue on this top edge right here. The reason why I do that is where your rig most likely is going to touch. And so you want to make sure that up there along the top is glued down very well, or is solidly glued down. I want to avoid getting glue in this space right here and these two spaces down here. If you do get glue in there, it's okay, we can get it out and I'll show you how to do that, but you want to make sure that you avoid getting glue there because that's where other pieces have to slot into the wood and it may hinder and obstruct those pieces. Set my roller in my silicone tray. Gonna take a little piece of glue, dry glue in there. Now I'm gonna take my graphic that I previously dry fit. Make sure that's a thing. Make sure you dry fit. And when I put it down, I'm just gonna move it just a little bit on here, just to spread the glue just a bit. Okay, now that I've got that glued in place, a little glue on my work surface. The cool thing about this glue is it's water soluble. It comes off really, really easily. I'm gonna take my X-Acto knife again, and I'm just gonna make sure these slots are perfectly clean. The other thing I'm gonna make sure is this little piece right here where there's no graphic, I'm gonna make sure that's free of glue as well. So I'm just gonna go ahead and scrape the glue off there with my X-Acto knife. All right, so now the glue's scraped off there, and I made sure I have no glue in these tabs, the 3 tabs, 1, 2, and 3. Then this piece is done, and we're gonna set it aside. Just double checking it's lined up and pressed down, good. I'm gonna set it upside down and just set it aside for the time being while I glue the other piece. And we're gonna repeat the same process on this other piece. Now that I've got good coverage and I've made sure I've got good coverage on this, I'm going to take my second graphic here and once again moving it around slightly. And then I like to stand them up to make sure they are flush with the bottom. And then it's in place. Take my X-Acto knife, clean out my slots, get the glue off this little piece right here. Now, you'll notice that I've got glue. I put a little bit too much glue on this piece and I've got glue around the edges. That's okay, easy cleanup with a wet paper towel. Let me show you that. So I just take a wet paper towel that's been wringed out pretty good. Come up here and just wipe off the glue. I try to avoid getting too much water on the graphics because it is paper, but they can handle a little bit of water. And then you'll notice wet paper towel and the glue, it comes right off. There we go. Now that I've got my graphics glued on, I'm going to take my other graphic, my other piece, set it face to face, and you can put something heavy on this. I like to use my wife's Pyrex dishes because they're super heavy and they cover a large surface area, so they'll keep these flat. This time, I'm just going to use some of these little clamps, and we're going to clamp all around the edges. Face to face, So the graphics are face to face. And I'm just going to go ahead and use 5 or 6 of these clamps, clamping all around the edges, making sure that they hold these graphics tight so this glue can cure or set while we build the rest of our obstacle. This is what it looks like. It looks pretty good. I'm going to move this clamp over here. Take one of these, put them right here. Looks pretty good. It's pretty tight. They're flat. I'm going to take this now and I'm going to set it aside, and we're going to focus our attention on the rest of the pieces and getting the obstacle completed. I'm just going to grab one of the additional sheets and I'm going to continue to punch out the pieces. Let's start with this one. There we go, super easy. Move on to this one next. You'll want to make sure as you're punching these pieces out that you don't lose these 2 circles right there. They're critical. You need them for the pivot point of your bridge. So make sure you save those. There's that one. You'll notice I'm not going to punch those out yet because I don't want to lose them. I'll punch the braces and supports out. And the feet. The uprights of the feet, technically. All right. This is garbage. Burn it, do what you want with it. Before I punch anything else out, I'm going to focus my attention on getting all these little pieces out. It's not necessary for these to punch these out, but I like it because it's all about the looks. It kind of looks like a bridge, and this adds to that scale look. If you have fat fingers like me, you can use a ballpoint pen, you can use a X-Acto knife, whatever can help you to punch these pieces out. Just be careful you don't cut yourself. That's never fun. Now that we've got all our pieces punched out, let's step through and let's show you what the pieces are so you kind of have an idea before we get onto building the obstacle. The other reason why we're doing this is we're giving our glued pieces just a little bit more time to dry so that we know they're 100% cured or set so we can use them. We can work with them. The first thing you're going to want to know is our feet. These feet are universal throughout all our obstacles. This kit comes with 2 feet. The next piece is the feet uprights, which are these 2 pieces. They have the angle on them. Don't get them confused with the brace. We've had a lot of beta builders that got these 2 pieces confused. So these are the feet uprights. The next pieces are the cross brace or the cross support. We provide you with 2 because we know that crap happens. We know that accidents happen. We know that somebody's going to step on it. Somebody's going to knock it off a counter. Kind of a side story, fun fact, we actually had one up in a local hobby shop here in northern Utah, and they were beta testing it, and someone brought in like a X-Max or something, and it was sitting on their work counter, and they plugged in the X-Max and it zoomed forward and knocked it onto the floor. This is the only piece that broke. We're very happy to hear that because that told us that we're building a quality product and that our product actually could fall from a 4-foot countertop, which we were super excited to hear. The next 2 pieces we're going to be dealing with are the uprights. These 2 pieces have the 2 holes in them. Those are the 2 adjustable slots you'll see later. Make sure you save those 2 circular pieces from each one because we will be using them later on in the build. Speaking of circular pieces, here they are. I've saved them. I have 4 of them. You're really only going to need 2, but I kept all 4 until I'm sure I got them built and the obstacles fully built, because then if I lose one, I have an extra couple. The next piece is the bridge deck. This is the bridge deck, and what you're looking at is actually what I like on the bottom. However, you can run it whichever way you want. These 4 holes right here for washers. We'll show you that a little bit later on in the build. And the last pieces you're going to be looking at is the bridge support pieces. These are the 2 bridge rails. The side with the etched markings on it, or the etched graphics, is actually the outside of the bridge. So keep that in mind. That being said, let's build this thing. I'm going to start off with the feet because they're probably the easiest and they are universal. The feet uprights slip right down in these holes. They should fit fairly snug, but if you want a permanent fit and you're not going to be disassembling this obstacle, you can take a little bit of hot glue, or not hot glue, you can take a little bit of CA or super glue and put along these edges right here and then slot them into the feet. And when you do that, that will be permanent. After you do that, I like to put just a little bit of hot glue I keep saying hot glue, a little bit of CA or super glue there as well. That'll just help keep these in place. But as you can see, they fit fairly tight, not necessary, especially if you plan on taking the obstacle apart. Now that our feet are done, let's set them aside and let's focus our attention on the bridge deck. What we're gonna do is we're gonna get our hot glue gun warming up while we talk through this next part. I'm gonna use my trusty Ryobi. It's a great glue gun. If you guys would like to see us do a review on some of these glue guns, let us know in the comments below. The bridge deck is one of my favorite parts. It's really cool. It looks cool, and I just like the way this whole obstacle functions. So this is the actual bridge deck itself, and these are the side rails or the support brackets. So here is your first decision, your first choice in the customization of this obstacle. If you install these 4 washers, the bridge is going to return to its position when you enter the obstacle. It'll always return because the weight on the one side causes it to do that. If you do not want that, if you want it to be, let's say, a go and come back type of obstacle, then don't install these 4 washers. Quick side note, it's easier to balance your rock crawler on the bridge in the middle if you don't install the washers. It's insanely hard if you install these washers. But if you're like me and you crawl with other people, as soon as you get done with the obstacle, as soon as your rig leaves the obstacle, you want it to reset back to its original position so the next person in line can get on the obstacle. Decide whether you want to put the washers in and have it return back to its original position, or you want it to be a go and come back type of obstacle. The cool thing about hot gluing these in and not like permanently, like if you use CA glue in with the washers, if you want them permanent, use CA glue or super glue, that's perfectly fine. But the cool thing about using hot glue, if down the road you decide, I don't really want this to return to its original position, all you have to do is get a little isopropyl alcohol or rubbing alcohol and put a little bit on the hot glue, and it will soften the hot glue and cause the hot glue to release, and you can scrape it out and reapply the glue later if you want to put the washers back in. So just keep that in mind. Make your decision. If you don't want to do this, you can skip over this part. If you do want it to return back to its original position, then go ahead and install these washers. You remember those 4 washers we had at the very first? Right here, 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are going to be hot glued into this space right here. These 4 holes are for these washers. So I always like to test fit just to make sure everything's going in the way we want it to. All right, now that our glue gun's warmed up, let's go ahead and glue these washers in. I like to make sure I go all the way around the outside and then put a little bit in the middle here. Get good coverage on these washers. I've got this first washer in. I'm gonna go ahead and put the rest of them in just by dabbing the glue in here. Putting that down like so. Pushing down so it's nice and flat with the surface. Next. And the last one. Now that all 4 of those washers are in, here's something I like to do that just adds a little bit so I make sure those washers aren't going to fall out. I will take the center of the washer and I'll fill the center with glue and leave a little bead that kind of spills over the sides of the washer. And that will lock that washer in place. Out of all the times I've gone over this obstacle, I've driven over this obstacle with my RC crawlers, I've never had a washer pop out. Just like that. And we're done with installing washers. Let's wait for it to dry, and then we'll move on to the side rails of the broken bridge. All right, side rail time. We're going to take our side rails. The part with the engraved graphics is actually the outside of the obstacle. And so that points towards the outsides of the obstacle. I'm going to set the bridge deck aside here for a minute, and we're going to focus our attention here on the side rails. Remember those little circles we punched out of these obstacles right here? go ahead and grab those. You are only going to need 2 of them. So I've got 2 right here. We're going to take and we're going to put wood glue on these 2 parts right here and install these 2 circles like that. This is what creates the hinging back and forth of the broken bridge, the seesaw action, if you will. So I'm going to take my Tybond Quick and Thick again. And in this case, I'm just going to put a little bit. There we go. And I'm just going to use, in this case, my glue bottle. Maybe that's why my glue doesn't come out very easily, or my lid gets stuck on. But I'm just going to use my glue bottle to spread this around. Just like so. Make sure we get good coverage. All right. Now, once I've got that done, I'm just going to set that like that so my glue doesn't go back to the bottom. I'm going to take it, and this etching mark in the center is where I'm going to put the circle. I'm going to line it up. When it gets in there, I'm going to actually spin it just a little bit, just to spread that glue, move it around. And then I'm going to take one of my C-clamps or my clamps and clamp it on. Making sure when you clamp it down that that doesn't move, that it's still lined up with the etch mark. You can adjust it. There we go. Just like that. Set this aside, wait for it to dry. Repeat the same process on the next one. See if I can get my glue out here. There we go. Spread it around. Once again, keep in mind the Quick and Thick cleans up really easy with water. It's water soluble. Take this, line up with the center of the circle, rotate it around or move it around just to spread the glue. Take your clamp and clamp it in place. Set it aside to let it dry. Just like that. Now that we've taken the time and allowed our bridge deck rails to dry, I'm going to go ahead and remove these clamps, and we're going to start building this thing. Now that these are fully dry, I'm going to take my bridge deck and these rails, slip into the bridge deck, and they should fit fairly tightly. They should be fairly tight. We want them tight because we want them to not come out. Turn it upside down and just give it a light tap. Repeat the same process on the other side. There we go. Flip it over, give it a light tap. And there, our bridge deck is fully assembled. We're going to focus our attention on putting the rest of the obstacle together, actually building the broken bridge. I'm going to set my bridge deck aside. I'm going to grab the pieces that we glued the graphics on, and I'm just going to remove the clamps. And these have had about 15 minutes to dry, and they're beautiful. Okay? So next, what we're going to do is we're going to pick one side or the other, and we're going to take our upright. There's 2 of them. They sit parallel to each other. And then we're going to take our cross beam, this piece, and we're going to slot it into the upright. Sometimes you have to wiggle a little bit. And then we're also going to slot it through the graphic, the piece with the graphic on it. They're a little tight. We like them that way. There we are. Repeat the same process with the other side. Slot into the upright. Take our graphic, as you can see, and slot into our graphic. Just a little bit of wiggling. Okay. Make sure those are flush against the table. Now we're going to take our feet and we're going to put our feet on. The feet go in these slots right here. And then go ahead and seat them down. Now what I like to do is make sure the outside's seated, the piece with the graphic on it, and then go ahead and push the inside piece, the upright, down as well. So they sit flush against the table. There's one. Repeat the same process with the other foot. Just make sure you line them up. Make the outside with the graphic down, then push the upright down. Outside with the graphic down, then push the upright down. That is the base structure of our broken bridge. Now, this center support beam acts as a wedge. It is how you adjust the tension on the broken bridge. Before we put the bridge deck in, we're going to take that soap that we talked about. Grab my bar of ivory soap. Oh, I'm sorry, Irish Spring, not ivory. I'm going to open it up here. And I'm going to take the soap and I'm going to apply some soap. Just rub it in. Let me move this over so you can see it. Just rub it in on the outside of the circle that you glued on and around the edge. Okay? Not only is it going to lubricate that pivot point of the wood, it's going to make it smell delightful as well. And then the next thing I'm going to do with my soap is I'm going to actually do inside the upright in the back of the graphic where the pivot point is. And I'll do both of them at this point because eventually I'm going to be moving that down to the bottom. Flip it around and repeat the same thing on the other side with your soap. Now that we've got the parts soaped, if you will, you'll notice this cross piece or the cross brace can slide up and down, or in this case side to side, but when it's in the upright position it slides up and down. You'll notice that that adjustment allows you to put tension on the bridge deck. So if your bridge deck's falling out or if it's too loose, just slide that up a little bit. Doesn't have to be all the way. It'll start to put pressure on the bridge deck to make it a little bit more stiff and not move as easily. Now we're going to take our bridge deck and we're going to fit it into place. Make sure that the cross beam is all the way to the bottom before you do this. Otherwise, you'll stress the wood too much and you may break it. I'm going to just slot this in. And now we have a broken bridge. Returns to its home position. Now, if we want to have a little bit more pressure and the bridge deck to be a little bit stiffer, we take this cross member piece. I'm going to turn this on its side for you so you can see. And you just slide this up ever so slightly. It is fully adjustable, but this is going to put a little bit of pressure on the bridge deck and make it a little bit stiffer. That's good. Now I'm going to do the same thing on the other side here. Just slide it up ever so slightly. My foot fell off. And now I have a little bit more tension on that bridge deck. And just like that, we're done with the obstacle. I'm going to show you one more thing that's going to help this thing and increase its longevity. And also, if you're running on, like, say, your wife's fancy kitchen table, we're gonna show you how to protect that so it doesn't quite slam down so hard. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this obstacle and I'm going to actually remove the bridge deck. So once again, sliding the cross brace down because we don't want to put too much pressure on the bridge deck, on the side pieces and the uprights. Take the bridge deck out. This is also how you adjust it for different skill levels. I'm going to take this piece and set it aside. And now we're going to take our hot glue gun and we're going to put a bead of glue on this angle and this angle, and on the other side, this angle and this angle. What that's going to do is as the bridge deck returns to its original position, it slams down a little bit hard because of the weight, or as your rig forces it over and it slams down hard, that's going to just give it a little bit of cushion. It's a nice, easy way to not only quiet down your obstacle, but also protect the surface that it's on. I'm going to take my glue gun, and I'm going to just put a bead of glue here. And I'm going to kind of build it up, right? I'm just going to allow that to kind of be on the surface and just build that up with glue. and then let it dry. I'm going to repeat the process on all 4 corners of this bridge deck. I'm just going to build it up and let it be. Same thing over here. Put a bead of glue, a healthy bead of glue, and a healthy bead of glue on this last side. And you can always come back and add more if you need to. Now that that's done, I don't know if you can see, but I've got a nice healthy bead of glue on all 4 corners. What that's going to allow it to do is as it returns to its normal position, or as your rig slams down on the other side, it's just going to cushion it and quiet up the obstacle. And grab our base back, and making sure that the glue is completely dry, which it is, I'm going to reinstall our bridge deck. There we go. Perfect. Now I'm going to apply that upward pressure with the cross brace. Let me put this on its side again so you can see. I'm just going to give it a little bit of upward pressure. You'll notice I'm not going all the way. I'm going about halfway. That is sufficient for this. Once again, as wood warps or as it is more or less humid outside, the wood's going to act differently. So I found in my climate here in Utah that it is only needed to go up about halfway. So I'm going to push this one up to about that halfway mark. And now doesn't quite slam down quite as hard, which is super nice. If your bridge deck is too tight and it doesn't return like you want it to, all you have to do is slide that center piece down just a little bit, adjust it, still a little bit more, just like so. If you ever need to add more soap to your obstacle, go ahead and do so if it gets a little bit dry or if that soap wears off. All that is doing is lubricating that joint, that pivot joint that's made out of wood. So keep in mind, if you ever want to adjust your broken bridge, you want to make sure that you push down on that center support all the way to the bottom before removing the bridge deck. Otherwise, you'll risk damaging the uprights. Perfect. Well guys, there you go. We have done it. We have built the CrawlerTrax Broken Bridge. And last but not least, let's see this thing in action. I'm going to use my Panda Hobby 6x6 here on the bench. I'm going to move this one out of the way, grab my transmitter, turn this guy on. Hopefully there's enough space here. And let's see how we do. I absolutely love this obstacle. There we go. That's perfect. Let's try it one more time. Man, it's been a hot minute since I've driven my Panda Hobby 6x6. Forgot how much I love this thing. Perfect. This is awesome. I love this obstacle. It's so much fun. There's so many things you can do with it. What I love most about this is it's a really easy to run obstacle. I love the 2 points of adjustability. I can have it up high for me and my friends and my son because we like the little bit more difficult challenge, or I can drop it down a little bit and play past the transmitter with all my nieces and nephews. I love that option where I can lower it down, hand them a transmitter, and let them have a blast with it. That's one of my favorite things about the Broken Bridge. This obstacle is a blast to run on because it is a fairly easy obstacle and it's almost relaxing to run on it because it just works. It works really well. Well friends, thank you for joining me on this journey as we built the HRC CrawlerTrax Broken Bridge. Thank you for being part of the Hanger RC family, and thank you for your support. Speaking of support, one of the best ways you can support us, and it's free, is by hitting that subscribe button. It lets YouTube and the YouTube algorithm know that you like what we're doing and that we're worth showing to other people. Also, give us a thumbs up on this video if you've enjoyed your time here building with me, and smash the bell so you don't miss any of the latest updates or when we release new obstacles, which they're coming, so buckle up. Also, did you know we have a CrawlerTrax Facebook group specifically designed for you? All you have to do is answer a few simple questions and you can share videos and pictures with us, you can interact with us and interact with others that are in the hobby. It's just an all-around great place to hang out. We hope to see you over there. Also, we have Instagram, so head on over to Instagram and check us out there. And lastly, if you haven't picked up your HRC CrawlerTrax Broken Bridge or any other of our obstacles, head on over to hangarrc.com and get yours today. Thank you for your support again, and we hope to see you on the trail.